you die in this house? How did you die?
Whatever it is, it's trying desperately to communicate.
What is it in that house, Claire? What is it doing? Why is it trying to reach me?
It's a hand.
Senator, I'm John Rushton. I'm living in your house. Senator, look, I want to show him that.
You've got something of the senator's. He wants it back.
John?
What is it you want? What do you want from me?
Many films will frighten you, but only a few can really terrify you. The Changeling, an experience beyond total fear.
All right. So The Changeling, an experience beyond total fear. Who brought that to the table?
I did.
All right, Amanda Brass. Explain to us why The Changeling. What is it about this movie that made you pick it?
Gosh darn it, I just lost his name.
George C. Scott?
No, famous director, not Kubrick. Who did Taxi Driver?
Scorsese.
Scorsese's one of his top 10 films of all time.
Really?
It's one of his favorites. Now, I chose it because I liked the idea of the dead child as a centerpiece of the horror. Frankly, a lot of the horror that comes from this story, the origin story of how it gets haunted, it's actually a lot to do with eugenics. So we're talking about a medical industry that was actively, not helping lame children, not helping children who needed care. And then a really rich family that had an empire set in Seattle. He didn't want to lose his empire, so he switches out his son. He kills his son, he kills the weak one, and slips in a new child who will inherit his wealth. So it's capitalism gone awry. But George C. Scott is, I think, the person who can solve this mystery in the story, because he himself is haunted by the death of his wife and child in front of his eyes. It was his fault that they died. He could not reach them in time to save them. So he's walking around the movie with this cloud of mourning over him. And the ghost picks up on that and says, "You want to do something and make yourself feel better? Solve my death."
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I have a lot of issues with this movie.
Yeah, go on.
So, number one, this movie is Canadian.
Extremely so. They only shot.
I feel like it starts at a deficit because it's Canadian. It's got to struggle out of being Canadian first, and then it can go ahead and tell the story.
They did Seattle for 2 shots. Where the mansion is actually in Seattle.
Okay.
When they shot it, they had to be there for exteriors. They had to be there to show the Space Needle in the city and the Puget Sound. After that, they were all in Vancouver.
They probably, while they were in Seattle, wanted to talk to people that had experienced terror.
Right? That it wasn't just all beavers and maple syrup.
It's not all theory. Theory-based horror what I didn't like about this movie as a kid was that it was at people on the complete other end of the spectrum. So the idea of George C. Scott dying a week before he's supposed to die was not that exciting to me.
Wait, what?
What?
Everyone was fucking old. The movie was full.
Right. And look at him right there. He's definitely got one foot out. You know,
I had to dig down into his IMDb because I myself was like, why did they cast him? What's the scoop?
Yeah, and what was the scoop? I mean,
he was hot off.
Like he did a couple of other horror movies where he's just kind of yelling at like, for me, like George C. Scott, I gotta admit, Dan, earmuffs, but I'm not a huge George C. Scott fan.
He wasn't a fan of himself. Did you know that? This guy was so self-loathing. He tried to drink himself to death his entire life. He did not like himself.
Why does that make me like him more now?
Yeah.
He was extremely frustrated to be George C. Scott. You know when he got awarded the Oscar for Patton? Mm-hmm. He said, "No, I refuse to take it. I'm not worthy of this Oscar." Forget.
Okay, so he had a streak of self-loathing. I can appreciate that. But I mean, it just feels to me like George C. Scott was always just somebody who was just grunting and yelling at things. You know,
there was a lot of that in his career for sure.
Yeah.
He did manage to capitalize on that.
When he truly emoted though, to me it was hideous to watch. It was like something you really. It's like how you don't want to see your dad cry. You really don't want to see George C. Scott cry.
Maybe that's why he always made me like a little bit nervous, because he had kind of like that like over emotional, like someone who looks like this.
Yeah.
You do not need that person's emotions in your life. You need that person to keep it bottled up like the rest of his generation.
There's a reason George C. Scott is getting haunted. You can't look like that and have a lot of emotions without it confusing the afterworld.
How old do you think he is in this movie, guys? Everybody try to guess his age. 78 from Mike. Daniel? How old is he?
I bet he's at this point 58.
Okay, Alfredo.
Well, see, because you're asking, it's going to be something shocking like 25.
I was going to say,
right? Like you wouldn't be asking, now we're supposed to look at this and go like, he was only 25 during this film, and he looks like my elbow after I've been out in the desert for 3 weeks. You know, like.
Yes.
How old was he?
A fresh-faced 52.
Yeah.
Now,
I just want to point at everybody
78.
here and say we all look fantastic except for Dan.
Oh, don't do that. Don't do that.
Who is also
Dan
52.
is in Chicago. It's his own fault.
It's Chicago.
Chicago hammers you, Danny. I'm sorry.
I know those winters, right?
Brutal.
And then this is the scene that kept coming up over and over again, Amanda, and I think it's an upturned tricycle and a woman at the bottom of the stairs screaming.
She is losing. I've never seen an actress truly lose her shit before until this woman shot this scene. I thought she was gone.
And
she was in there. That's not a tricycle, sir.
What was
that is an old-fashioned wheelchair for
a kid.
Those
things are scary.
Oh God.
You guys remember
with the wicker back and the high wicker back?
Yeah.
Yeah, like in that Hannibal Lecter Red Dragon.
Yes.
Where they send Philip Seymour Hoffman on fire down the street in that. That's a great scene and a great movie and a great actor set on fire.
Yeah.
By another great actor, might I add. Voldemort sets him on fire. Very cool.
Very fun. Well,
yes.
So I think this is a really good, sophisticated horror film.
It is a very good, sophisticated, and the eugenics take on it, Amanda. You know, I didn't think about that, but it definitely does make sense. And when we're talking right now about Canada and sort of their ideas around race and breeding them out, I think that's an interesting observation. So kudos to you on that. And So all the way across, I think we all like all of us have seen this movie, yes,
Long
and
ago.
all of us can agree that it was absolutely terrifying.
I got a call in the middle of watching it. It was my parents, and I'm like, I can't talk right now. I'll talk to you later. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm watching a horror film. And they're like, it's daylight out. I was like, yeah, this is the Changeling. There's something about it that is really scaring me right now. I need to get off the phone.
It's
I couldn't
George C.
explain it.
Scott. It's George C. Scott. It's the unhinged adult. You're supposed to be Patton, man. Put it together. Get it together.
The camera's point of view takes on the ghost point of view so many times in that house. It feels unholy to travel through that mansion as a ghost, and that you hear the adults talking, and there's a seance that goes off the rails. Blah. Very,
I do
very
like that
off-putting.
you see the seeds and the camera work of what would be perfected in Evil Dead. You know, just
A lot of that.
That ghost POV that really got amped up by Sam Raimi later on. But yeah.
Interestingly enough, the opening shot of this movie is the almost exact same as The Shining. Both came out in 1980. I don't know how they both
I
did
feel like
that.
1980 was like a really like I there's just something magical about like 76 to like 82.
Yes, with
Like-
horror movies.
Like there are some amazing movies. Let's keep this rolling here. Amazing film, Brass. Thanks for bringing that to the table. Here is our next movie. All right, here we go. Ready?
For 2 million years in these subterranean caves, a creature of superhuman evil was entombed in a wall of ice, waiting to be free, waiting to live again. Travel with us on a journey into a world where nightmare becomes reality.
Are you telling me that an ape that lived 2 million years ago got onto that crate, killed the baggage man and put him in there?
Yes, I am. It's alive. It must be.
Travel with us, if you dare, on the Horror Express.
We'll search the train and find it, whatever it is, and destroy it. But if it's alive...
I want this kept quiet. I don't want to panic the passengers.
The malignant power of this creature is indestructible, transferring its force from mind to mind, from body to body.
Beast is not dead. I put 4 bullets into him.
You think evil can be killed with bullets? Satan lives.
The animal that you shot was only the host. It's alive in someone on this train.
You saw his eyes. One look at them and you're dead.
Anything that moves near that door, kill it!
Run. Run for your life. Hide, but you can't escape. No one can stop the fury and the terror of the Horror Express.
All right. Horror Express. I love this movie. Mike Black, why did you bring Horror Express to the table other than the amazing obvious reasons?
Right. First of all, because the movie I wanted to bring is just not available anywhere, and that is what was the title of it? The Detectives, or I forget. But it had Don Knotts and Tim Conway, and you'll never find it on anything. But it was more of a traditional haunted house movie, whereas this is not, by definition. But it has all the elements. It has everything that you need. An interesting cast of characters, all the different rooms that you would find on a clue board, an ancient evil that is doing the heavy lifting of haunting all of it, and the bonus of it being on wheels. It's a haunted house plus speed, and it's really a lot of fun. The only thing I don't care for are things that were like limitations of the time for the monster itself. But other than that, this movie stands up really well, and you can find a pretty great print of it on YouTube.
Yeah,
it's not like an old choppy, shitty version of it.
No, it's a good version on YouTube.
Yeah.
In fact, you can find a better version on YouTube than you can on Amazon Prime.
Probably on DVD or Blu-ray. Yeah.
So this movie has an incredible cast. And speaking of actors who do horror well, so we had Christopher Lee, right? I mean, Christopher, and it's the dynamic duo, Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing.
Yeah. It's the two people you want most in a horror movie at that time.
Yeah, exactly. They were the kings of the Hammer horror series.
Yeah.
I think they starred together in like over 30 movies. Like they just cranked out all of these horror films. This movie cost $300,000 to make.
Really?
Total. Yes.
Even for that time, that's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because the production value is really good. The only thing I really have misgivings about is the monster itself. But
now that you know the budget.
Yeah. That's pretty great. That they were able to find an actor that just looked like that and give him glowing eyes or whatever. But the whole period piece angle of it, and really the setting adds
the Russian kind of, the Siberian. In fact, I think the Italian name of this is Panico Entrance. Panic on the Trans-Siberian. Oh, and it's a Spanish movie. This was filmed in Spain.
Oh,
and
really?
The director was Spanish. Yeah, this is a Spanish film.
I thought it was like spaghetti horror at first.
It is. I mean, it's paella horror.
Oh, you beat me to it.
Those crappy jokes. But so the director was Spanish. This was one of his first movies. It was a big deal that they got Cushing and Lee for it. And of course Telly Savalas.
Telly Savalas.
Telly Savalas that they saved for just the right moment.
Right?
And they almost use him like Tartuffe, where it's like the entire first act kind of is setting the stage for him, and then he comes in late and just blows it out of the water. He's just terrific in this movie.
Pretty spectacular.
And the whole Rasputin character is fantastic.
There is a Rasputin character, right?
Who for most of my life I thought was Richard Harris in like a wig and with a darkened beard, but he's some other actor. I looked it up today and I was like, oh, that's
it's possible.
Richard Harris at all.
And I think that's kind of like I feel like the Rasputin character really like cinches up the whole like this is a Russian train. Of course, the other thing that cinches up that this is a Russian train is Telly Savalas is a Cossack in this. And you know this because of the costume he's wearing.
Right.
And let's just take a look at this costume.
Oh.
Holy smokes.
I'm gonna tell you something. People were pregnant on this set. I'm just saying.
I feel like that's an actual glass of vodka with the cigar.
I mean, it's a cigarillo, please. It's not a cigar, right?
This is not acting. This is just Telly Savalas.
I could see Telly Savalas wearing this, including the dagger, to a party.
I could see him wearing this to report to set the first day. And they're like, you've already been to wardrobe? No, I haven't.
No.
Well, just don't.
Where are they?
What I love is also that this was an actor's personal choice on this, but the unbuttoned, showing a little bit of chest on the little on the Cossack's jacket, that's a choice. That's not an accident there.
Designed to show off your chest.
Yeah, there's a costume designer going that's not supposed to be worn like that.
It is by me, baby. And he gave him a playful smack on the cheek.
Which cheek? I would need about 3 of those little vodkas to stand next to Christopher Lee. I wouldn't be able to.
Well, and he looked very good in this too.
You don't need to tell me.
Wow. Very handsome Christopher Lee.
Well,
this is.
And the thing, you know that Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and Telly Savalas just partied through this entire shoot.
So, actually, no.
Oh,
and
no.
The reason we know that is because Peter Cushing almost didn't do this movie. His wife had just died.
Oh.
And he was just beside himself. Shows up on set, says, I can't do this. And then Christopher Lee went and said, look here, old friend. You and I must do this film together. Right? And
Jesus!
And then Telly Savalas patted him on the ass. And
hey!
Who loves you, Petey?
Oh, that's too bad. So he talked him into it.
So this movie is spectacular just based on those 3 guys. But also the concept of a roaming terror inside a confined space. And I think that's kind of what makes those like haunted house movies work, is that
yes,
you're within 4 walls and you can't get out, right? It's the claustrophobia.
That's the important part. Because we discussed beforehand, does this count as a haunted house? And it's it definitely does, because there's no escaping this area,
right?
Right. Well, that's what I mean. Train movies are good in general, right? Murder on the Orient Express,
Busan,
just a train movie,
right?
And then it becomes this whole other thing. And the monster itself, aside from its kind of stupid appearance in some shots, and other shots it looks really good, but
monster.
Aside from that, the concept of an ancient evil that picks victims and drains their intelligence to kill them. Basically, it's flour for Algernon's, everybody.
So it's basically Facebook.
When they do the autopsy and you see a brain that's smooth and has no wrinkles of memory or anything.
Oh, that's right.
I was like, oh, fuck.
That was horrible. A good effect too.
Yeah.
That made an impression. Yeah.
I thought, as a thing to be afraid of, when I first saw this as a kid, I was terrified of that whole idea. And I didn't have a whole lot of memories to steal at that point. But I was still like, oh, no thanks.
Yeah, I love this movie. I mean, just the cast, just the so Telly Savalas is on this film as a cameo. He's billed as a cameo, but this cameo is pivotal to the movie. They want to go out on a bang, and so they bring in Telly Savalas. It's wild. And the fact, I mean, Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing really carry it, but supporting staff is spectacular. And here's something interesting: this Spanish film did the worst in Spain.
Oh, that's
everywhere else across the world, they were just this is actually pretty good. But in Spain, they're like, there is no castanets. There was just they were just I don't get it. Yeah, that was the problem. That was their main issue with it was not sufficient castanets, no bowls. There was just
But kudos to Telly Savalas for being the guy that could come into a room and intimidate Christopher Lee. You know,
right?
Yeah, it's worth a watch just for his entrance into the movie. But
for sure.
It's a great movie all around. It's worth seeing, especially around this time of year.
It is. It's a good movie, and I in particular love like the sort of ham-fisted way they're just like, no, this is Russian.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're very insistent on how Russian this is. And that's why you see that Rasputin-looking fella who comes in and, you know, he's like straight from Sex with the Tsarina, he's coming into this train.
He has that great line of dialogue that I'll paraphrase because I don't remember it exactly, but the devil has little to fear but an honest Cossack.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. And, of course, just the ear candy that it is to listen to Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing say anything. Just anything. Yeah. Right? Like, Peter Cushing had 3 lines in Star Wars, and everybody's just, to this day, we're just like, what? At a moment of triumph. Right? Like, we all know all of the Peter Cushing lines because it's Peter Cushing. So, yeah, awesome movie. I'm so glad you brought it to the table because I was trying to find where I was going to bring it in, and so I'm glad we got this out of the way. It's an awesome, awesome flick. All right, next movie. This one's mine. Cinema.
Cinema.
Man.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so this movie, first off, how can you not have a movie called House in a haunted house? Like, the movie's called House, so obviously, like, I was just like, no, this is spot on. But also, I love Obayashi. The director of this is a Toho director, so the same people who produced all of the Godzilla movies, the same studio that produced all of the Godzilla movies produced this. The story behind this is surreal, right? Like how this got made. Toho asked Obayashi to come up with a movie like Jaws. And this is what resulted.
Almost identical.
Almost identical.
Shot for shot.
So the thing about this movie was that like they came up with the script and directors kept reading the script and nobody wanted to direct it. They were just like, no. No. And so they weren't going to make it. And then Obayashi went and made a comic book out of this, and then a radio play out of this. And both the comic book and the radio play were a huge success. And Toho's like, okay, I guess you're making the movie. And before this, he hadn't ever directed a feature. He had only directed commercials, like beauty product commercials.
Wow.
So, director Obayashi, who by the way, I met back when he was alive, wonderful, quirky Japanese human. Like if you meet him, you know this is the man who made this movie. That is the brain, right? So wears it on his sleeve. He's a nut. But what happened was Obayashi's just like, well, I've never made a movie before. How am I going to cast this? I know. I'll call all the girls who appeared on these cosmetic commercials for me. So the entirety of the main cast, with the exception of the woman who plays the aunt, are amateur actresses who had never done a movie before in their lives. And the movie is absolutely batshit, as you can see. Basically, the plot is, I think it's 5 girls, each of them named after their attributes. So you've got Kung Fu, who's really good at Kung Fu. You've got Mac, which is Japanese for stomach, and she is fat. And then you have Beauty, and you have Melody, and you have, like all of them have names, and that's what they are, right? It's very, very obvious. And then they get into this house, and it just goes nuts. And they had to invent a lot of the effects that they used because Toho didn't have those capacities in-house. Like Obayashi's brain was somewhere else. And so you see, like, it's a really psychedelic thing, and it's very obsessed with, like, music, and the music is very haunting, but also kind of wild. And in fact, the band that plays that rock theme that you just heard does a cameo. The whole thing is just crazy. And it was a huge hit in Japan and wasn't released into the US until this cut that we saw. Like, I think it wasn't released until like the 2000s because it was just deemed too weird for the US. And so, yeah, so I saw one of the first like releases of it here in the US, and I was just like, this guy is genius. This movie it's everything you want a Japanese horror to be. And you guys remember last year I brought Kuroneko to the table, and Kuroneko had, again, you're just like, what is happening? I think one of the things that I've realized, the two themes that I see in Kuroneko that and this one that are just unbelievable are women, evil women, and cats, evil cats. And I looked up, like, what do cats mean in, like, Japanese, like, mythology and society, right? Because and believe me, no one thinks cats are more villainous than I do, right? I despise cats. I think that it is an unequal relationship we have with those animals, and eventually, when they can, they will try to kill us. And in House they do, and in Kuroneko they do. And so, it aligns with my values, but also, like, cats are supposed to be good luck in Japan, right? Like, they're supposed to be, like, we've all seen the waving cat and Hello Kitty, right? So why are these cats satanic cats? Any idea, Brassy?
Oh, no, I'm waiting for you to say.
As our mythology.
I mean, the only I'm reaching here. That the evil has used the icon of the good luck cat as a mirage, like as a trick to trick humans. I don't know.
No, but I like that. So I guess, and this has to do with the women. I feel like the woman cat energy. So Kuroneko, the old woman, was the one that turned into a cat first.
Right.
And in this, the auntie, it uses the cat as the vehicle for horror. Evidently, cats have an evil energy in them that is released as they get older. So young cats, kittens, are good luck. Hello Kitty, yay! Old cats, ornery, awful, similar to old women, right? Crones, all of that. So yeah. So and the haunted house in this is just amazing. Has anybody seen this movie?
I have.
All right.
Parts of it. I haven't watched it straight through.
Now, what's weird is
Yeah, I wouldn't say
haven't.
I watched it sober or all the way through, but I did watch it. What I was really a fan of was all the cartoon tropes, both practical effect and animated, that were thrown into that movie, and how there were times where I was like, well, you animated this, why wouldn't you animate that? But some of the choices that were made were mystifying, but they were a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and so this has actually a lot in common with Poltergeist in that Poltergeist had animated spirits, and but also like animated like pieces of furniture. Brass, do you remember any of the deaths in this? Because the deaths are all like a good like team horror is when each person gets knocked out in ways that are unique to each of them, right? Like that's the best thing about like slasher movies. Like everybody gets theirs in their own special way. So do you remember any of the deaths in this?
The piano.
Yes. Yeah. Melody.
Very no, thank you.
Yeah.
I do you remember Hastings? Does everybody here remember Hastings?
Yes.
Right next to the Walmart.
Oh,
yes.
The place. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I rented House from there. I got a VHS copy of House from there when I was in college. That was the first time I saw it, and it kind of blew my mind because I had only seen Western horror, and I realized, then I rented The Ring, the Korean version, and all this stuff, and The Grudge, and I was like, oh, this is the future of horror. We're catching up to them. They're way ahead. Oh.
Wow. Yeah. It's pretty wild. And I think for me, so Brass, describe the piano. Melody is the girl that's playing the piano.
Yeah.
And the piano basically first bites off her hands.
Yeah, bites off her fingers. Then it electrocutes her.
Yeah.
And then the piano opens up like a mouth and then slowly like eats her body, pulls her body in and crunches her up.
Yeah.
That whole movie really shook me up. It was
off,
wild.
The first death is Mac, and she's out she gets beheaded, and then her floating head comes in and attacks one of the girls and bites her on the ass.
Yeah.
Like it's
it's a horror film, but it takes itself not seriously at all.
Right.
Which is off-putting for a Western mind to watch that and go, you're not taking any of this seriously enough. You girls are messing up here.
Yeah.
To me, that was kind of the interesting distinction where you brought up Poltergeist, whereas the animated stuff in Poltergeist, I don't think it was you were meant to know that it was animated. Whereas this, I thought they were really kind of like, it's an important element that you understand that this is animated, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a surreal, there's kind of, so I think that in Japanese culture we are supposed to understand possibly a dreamland in a more, and that is one thing, right? As soon as they leave Tokyo, it looks different. It's like they've entered the land of Oz, right? Like they're not even pretending like it's real. And then all reality gets completely warped as soon as they go into the house.
Well, yeah, I think it's interesting about the dream culture. Like Kurosawa's dreams, the ghost sequence is terrifying.
Maybe we bring that in for our non-Western horror show. Yeah.
Right.
Stick a pin in that one, Dan.
Yeah.
All right.
No, your brother showed me that. It was fantastic.
Oh yeah, Christian's a big fan of that. All right. Anything else you guys want to comment on Hausu, or shall we move on to our final and one of the more sort of iconic themes here? I want to make sure we give ample time for the next one. We good? All right. Let's go. All right. Quick comment before we jump into this, Dan.
Yeah.
Thank God that previews have evolved to where they simply preview and don't give you the entire film.
Right.
These older films that we like brought to the table, you're just like, well, I don't need to see it anymore because we've seen the entire thing in the preview.
Right.
This one doesn't give away the whole kit and caboodle. So
Yeah.
Dan, talk us through why you picked Poltergeist 2.
Well, I sort of want to talk about the whole trilogy, but Poltergeist 2, what we can focus on. So the Poltergeist trilogy to me is an ultimate 80s movie series.
Social commentary?
Social commentary, yes. It's about coming out of the 60s and the 70s with the baby boomer generation, and it sort of moves through different sort of weird stuff from the 80s till you get to like Poltergeist 3, where it's just like conspicuous consumption causing the problems, right? So Poltergeist 2 is interesting because it kind of focuses on like the cult panic coming out of like
panic.
Yes. Kane is a cult leader. He leads everyone to death, right? Coming out of Jonestown, right, in 78, right? And then you sort of get this new age thing that they couch behind Taylor and his shamanism, his Native American shamanism that people were getting into back in the 60s and 70s, right? And it's also about like these two parents. It's not about Carol Ann. It's about these two parents growing up and having to deal with life, which is what all. And I've told you guys this: the best horror movies are about families. So, and I think this is all about families, right? And then poor Robbie, the middle child. It's just.
Oh, I didn't even remember that Robbie existed.
Yeah, no, he was the middle brother, and he's just getting
middle
thrown
child.
around.
Who remembers that? What happens to him in this?
He gets the braces wrapped around his head and strung to the ceiling.
What?
And he's not clairvoyant at all. He has nothing to do with any of this.
They're just
I
like,
was minding my own
torture
business
the
in
middle
my
child.
room, Mom.
Right? It's got the middle child thing. And then let's talk about how Poltergeist is the most scary series of all time. Because most of those people are dead.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that to light.
So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about this guy right now.
Dying of cancer.
Like
yeah,
immediately
so
after
he
the
was dying of cancer while he made this film.
Mm-hmm.
He did not make it to the. He didn't make it to the end of filming.
No.
I don't think so.
No, he didn't, and he is a wild one. Julian Beck is the actor's name.
Mm-hmm.
And he had quite the.
Are we sure it's not Don Knotts?
Yeah, no, that is definitely not Don Knotts. But yeah, he had. I mean, he was a theater guy.
Mm-hmm.
And experimental theater at that point, and he didn't have like a long illustrious career, but he had a hardcore life, man. Like he was intense,
Right.
And
He's really good in that part.
Yeah, I mean, he was obviously a good actor. I mean, I think that's the kind of guy who people would describe as an actor's actor. But Julian Beck, diagnosed with stomach cancer in '83. And then died in '85 before this film came out, which is pretty crazy.
Wow.
And also like
Was he in anything else that people might know?
Let's see, he was in Miami Vice, and actually his episode of Miami Vice aired 13 days after he died.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Oedipus Rex in 1967. The Cotton Club in 1984, in 9.5 Weeks in 1986, but his biggest role was this one in Poltergeist 3.
That's amazing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, of course, Taylor, the guy that played the the guy that played the Native American died.
Chief. That's Chief from Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes. And then Carol Ann died after 3. Right, and then it's a little girl.
Middle of 3?
What happened to the little girl?
She had like a stomach situation.
I heard it was more like a leukemia thing.
Yes, it was all cancer. And then the older sister in 1 was murdered.
Yikes.
By a stalker, I think, right? Or an ex-boyfriend.
I think her boyfriend. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Dominic
But
Dunn
then
tried to solve it.
But we do have one of the best characters of all time from horror movies, and that's in Zelda Rubinstein. She was fantastic, right? Just so good.
One of the best sound bites in frickin' horror history is this
Right.
house is clear. Like, we love you. We love you.
But they're really good, and we were talking about the animation earlier. On a technical level, this was pretty cutting edge.
Yeah, this was
like in the 80s.
I was thinking the animation was on the first one, on the first Poltergeist, but in this one you get actually what's his name? The guy who designed the aliens.
Geiger?
Yeah, Geiger.
Yeah.
Yes, he designed the monster, the final monster.
The creature features are really good in this.
In Poltergeist
for the
2.
80s, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, this is an intense movie.
It is. They're good. They're good movies. I don't think they're all that scary, but I think like they're just, like The Exorcist, which you know is one of my favorites, and The Shining.
Is it?
It's all about. The Exorcist has nothing to do with demons. The Exorcist has to do with divorce.
Okay, but
that's what's
divorce
happening
with a
in The
demon.
Exorcist. No, what's happening is the family is falling apart because of divorce.
No, that movie with Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver is about divorce. Like, this is there without the demon, The Exorcist would be called an upset little girl, right? Like, it's not.
Right.
It's like it would. You wouldn't get the priests in there. The demon is kind of necessary.
Well, what do you
for The
think?
Exorcist.
Wait, hold on. What do you think The Shining is about?
Alcoholism?
It's about alcoholism.
Oh, look at
I was
that.
just kidding.
Russ.
I was only kidding.
No, it is.
Oh.
Okay, but alcoholism and ghosts.
Well.
All right. Well, so I think what happened to the old lady in this, right? Like, so she did that amazing. This house is clean, right? Like, she came in on that first one. What does she do in the second one? I'm having a tough time remembering the second one.
She does sort of the. So
she kind of hand it off to the
she guides the mother. She becomes kind of a mentor because she says, like, I can't see what's going on, like she's blocked. But she knows that the mother's clairvoyant. All of the women, the grandmother, the mother, and Carol Ann are all clairvoyant. But the mother has turned it off. And so she sort of mentors her into singing. Because in the first movie, the dad kind of goes in, right? Craig T. Nelson does.
Right.
But in this one, the mother...
Coach.
Pushes it, right.
Got it.
Right.
All right. So, and what, and at the end here we have is it an Indian graveyard? I mean, I feel like, oh, you built on top of an Indian graveyard is...
No. So it's Indian land that whites put a graveyard on. But then to make it even worse, the cult that Kane runs sealed themselves in.
Into the cave that's
under the pool.
house.
Yeah, right. Under the graveyard, under the pool, under the graveyard is the cave that's on native land. So just...
It's a very complex situation. Cults, developments, burial sites, and Native Americans. It's an all-American horror story.
And there's also sort of a comment on there about, like, building on native lands, just expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding suburbs.
Right, and I mean that's why the Cresta Verde they're the bad guys, right? Like ultimately, like
right.
Isn't there a come to Jesus moment where they're like, you just took off the headstones, right?
Which is one of my favorite real stories. Happened in Denver at Cheeseman Park. They just removed the headstones. So that was the old city cemetery. They were supposed to, as Denver expanded in the 1890s, they moved them all out to Fairmount. They didn't move them all out to Fairmount.
So what? Do people still find bodies in Cheeseman Park?
Every time they do work in Cheeseman Park, they find bones.
Hot.
They had to. That's why it's considered the most haunted part of Denver, right? So,
I hope
the guy that was
a plaque at Cheeseman's Park.
The guy they hired to move the bodies. Once the residents of Denver found out what he did, he had to be taken into custody for his own protection.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because there was a lynch mob out for him.
Being born and raised, that does not surprise me in the least.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a very Colorado thing to happen.
Yeah.
That's the attitude. That's the attitude.
No, Cheeseman Park is very haunted. But I'm sure Los Angeles has those stories. I mean, we have Lincoln Park here in Chicago was the old city cemetery. And every once in a while, they'll pull up some bones.
So House didn't have this theme. Changeling had this theme. Horror Express had this theme. And Poltergeist 2 has this theme. Leaving bones in peace, or settling the old scores and keeping vengeful
settling the
spirits
old
quiet.
score is kind of a thing in House. So
Okay.
what happens is the aunt was going to get married, and her fiance got killed in the war, and so she never married, so she punishes unmarried women.
Ew.
So all the girls in there were unmarried, and the aunt is just like,
Girl
"Who are
boss."
you for being unmarried?" I don't know.
Yeah, that sucks.
But that's always the thing with ghosts. There's no reason for a ghost to haunt unless it wants to settle a score.
Fair enough.
Right?
Is that always the motivation? Can we think of any differently motivated ghost? I feel like Slimer had nothing to like.
Slimer is mad.
The unfinished business idea is always there, at least.
Right.
Like the Sixth Sense was that.
The Others.
Yeah.
Right. The Grudge.
Casper.
And
Right?
ghosts,
Like. Sorry, go ahead.
ghosts that don't know that they are dead, do not understand that they are dead, and are still in love with someone who is living. Now we got ourselves a stew going. Now we got All of Me. Remember All of Me with Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin?
Yeah.
There's like they transmigrate the spirits. You know, I'm just saying.
Or Always is another example.
Well, even Ghost, right, with Patrick Swayze.
I just said Ghost, Dan.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you.
I was talking over all of it.
You guys, no fighting.
Too late.
So, I genuinely do love me a good haunted house. Period. Like, I love going into scary places. Mostly because it's a matter of I am reminded that how superstitious I actually am versus how superstitious I think I am, right? And how susceptible I am versus how susceptible I think I am, right? I am a rational man of science, and isn't it always the rational man of science who ends up getting it square between the eyes right away, right?
Yeah.
So
I think that's really
you're
the
also
most fun thing about horror is often the people in it, they don't believe in a certain thing or whatever. But if stuff like that were to happen, you wouldn't really have a choice, you know?
You're not allowed that choice as a human being.
Right.
Your entire thing is you don't like the dark. You don't like noises you don't understand. You don't like sudden movements. right? Like you can't.
We are evolutionarily predisposed to be scared of haunted houses.
Yeah,
it keeps you alive.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah, and to draw danger where there might not be any in our minds, you know,
Right,
if
right.
we're not sure what a situation is, our imagination errs on the side of terror.
Is there a haunted house movie that relies a lot on your imagination and you painting like horrible things? Is there, because I feel like haunted house movies are very explicit.
There was a movie, I don't know if it specifically falls under that category, but there was a movie that Halle Berry did where everyone was trying to convince her that she was insane.
Yeah, Gothic.
And a lot of it had to do with her drawing her own conclusions off the stimulus they gave her, you know. And yeah.
That's one.
That's the only one I can think of.
I think they're mostly people in asylums.
Yeah.
Shutter Island is kind of that way too.
Very good.
Love those
It's not so much
psychological
a horror
thrillers.
movie, but 12 Monkeys had a great moment in there where someone tells him that he's mentally divergent and this is probably all a hallucination. And the look of relief on Bruce Willis's face at that possibility is so sad and terrifying of like, oh God, wouldn't it be great if that's true? You know?
And then Netflix had The Haunting of Bly Manor. I loved it, but I also couldn't to this day tell you who was a ghost, who was dead, who was alive, what happened.
Interesting.
Like that's a real haunted. It's real nebulous.
Right. That was good. And their Haunting of Hill House was pretty good too.
All right.
Again,
so
more psych.
One final question for you all. Haunted attractions, haunted houses, where you go into dark spaces and you willfully subject yourself to being scared in a dark space and triggering those things. Are you into it or are you not? Mike, do you go to those things?
I'm into it except for like Hell House or any one that has an agenda or is trying to teach you a lesson.
Yeah.
But like just a regular haunted house, if they're actually good at what they're doing, it makes it so much better.
Yeah.
If they're a little too excited about what they're doing and
you gotta get that cast, man.
Yeah, that has a lot to do with whether it's or not, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the fully automated haunted houses at like fairgrounds and stuff.
Oh,
and
okay.
Haunted Mansion to this day is still probably my favorite Disney
the Haunted Mansion's amazing.
Muppets Haunted Mansion coming out soon.
Ooh.
But
Dan, do
I
you
like
do
them.
that? You do it?
I haven't done them in a while because they've gotten really expensive. They're like $40-$50.
Yeah.
But and they're crowded a lot with just kids, and I don't want to deal with it. But I enjoy them when I've gone.
We sound real crotchety.
I
No,
I don't want to be.
there's actually, I gotta be honest. There's actually a really, really good one. Well, that one outside of Greeley in the corn maze is awesome.
Yeah.
And there's a good one in Parker, Colorado. I haven't been to one here in Chicago since I've been here. But that Lamont and I one time did reviews.
We did.
And we got into a ton of them how many did we do that night? Like
We did
five in one night.
Yeah.
For
5
free.
in one night. It was pretty crazy.
That was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're fun.
Yeah. How about you, Brassy?
I love them, and I usually stand out in front of the crowd. I figured the best way to not get terrorized is to be first, because they always get the person bringing up the caboose.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
true.
Just a little
That's
help for all our listeners out there. The number one thing I don't like that I think cheapens the experience is when they use loud noises as a cheap jump scare. I hate you for that. That's cheap.
Yeah.
Don't
I think
do
they get a
that.
little. I think lately, like over the last 10 years, like they do the butcher thing, the clown thing, the weird farm. Like they just all sort of start to repeat themselves.
Yeah, there's a lot of tired
Aliens sometimes.
I still levitate 3 inches off the ground when I hear a chainsaw rip up.
Yeah.
When someone starts a chainsaw, I'm like, I'm getting on the roof.
Right. No, and the way they do it well is you smell the gas.
Yeah.
Okay. For those of us born without a sense of smell, I have no idea.
Okay, I apologize. No, but
It
that's
does
what's
add a
always
layer
gotten
of
me.
reality when you know it's a gas-powered chainsaw.
Right. Well,
Right.
and there is like there's that tension, right? Like the dipshit cast member,
Right.
You know, who's taking this a little too far already.
Did the
they
junior in
leave
high
the
school
chain on
remove the
chainsaw?
chain? Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Did he like we're putting our hands on some idiot who looks forward to this every year. This is the only moment where he gets to shine and has his moment in the spotlight. It's the closest he'll get from getting an interaction with a pretty girl, and here we go. Let's hope he's able to keep that reality and that.
This might be the
fantasy.
year he decides to purge.
Yeah, exactly.
On a lighter note, gentlemen, what do you think about the photography that happens after a jump scare? That some haunted houses will
Oh, those
show
are
you
awesome.
the picture of
Love
being
it. Love
scared,
it.
freeze frame in motion.
I'm a big
love
fan.
those.
Big fan.
Yeah.
All right.
They're fun.
So next week we have Un-American Horror Story, where we will all bring something that is not of this country. So we all have to bring in something foreign. Canadian does not count.
Canadian
I'm just
Or
telling you
UK.
right now, you cannot bring in a Canadian horror.
No
Can it
British.
be Irish or British?
No Commonwealth. Commonwealth out.
Okay, no.
So
comment.
no native English.
You guys
Right.
can do whatever. I just wanted to say Commonwealth.
Should we say it that way?
I think the more fanciful and exotic, the better. So
Right.
So
I think,
just
I
covered it.
mean,
British
look what
horror
Italy
gets
did.
covered plenty.
Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of foreign, just wanted to one more thing about Terror Express is that Horror Express, sorry, is Terror Express is a different movie. It's
about Taco Bell.
No, it's about it's a slightly racy spy movie. But anyway, so Horror Express was filmed entirely with no sound, and the sound was added afterwards.
Oh,
that
So that
explains
all
a
of
lot.
everybody dubbed their own voices afterwards. And if you watch it, knowing that now, you can kind of
I thought because it was on YouTube, it was just a little out of sync, but now
yeah,
it makes sense.
no. Yeah, makes sense. All right, so next week on American Horror Story, this has been Deep Cuts 2021 Haunted Houses. Bye, guys. Thank you.